Welcome to Monk's Temple. There comes a moment when you realize you have been sleepwalking through your own life. You arrive home with no memory of the drive. You finish a conversation and cannot recall what was said. You blink and another year has vanished. In that moment, you glimpse something unsettling. Most of your life has been happening without you. You have been present in body but absent in awareness, and the days have slipped away like water through open hands. This is where the Buddha's teaching on karma begins. Not with rebirth or cosmic justice. Not with fate or punishment. But with this simple observation: most of the time, we are not really here. And because we are not here, we are not choosing. We are reacting. We are habit machines running on old programming, and we mistake this programming for who we are. The word karma has been badly translated in the West. It has come to mean destiny or luck or some cosmic scorecard. But the Buddha meant something far more immediate. He defined karma as intention. Your will. Your purpose. The motivation behind every action of body, speech, and mind. Not the action itself, but what drives it. Not what you do, but why. This distinction changes everything. Think of the last thing you said and instantly regret it. Trace it backward. What was the intention behind those words? Fear. Self-protection. Old hurt surfacing. That invisible intention was the real action. The words were just its shadow. And that shadow, once cast, cannot be uncast. This is the law the Buddha asked us to study: cause and effect operating in the most intimate territory there is, which is your own mind. When people came to the Buddha with questions about karma, they always asked about the past. What did I do to deserve this? They wanted someone to blame, even if that someone was a previous version of themselves. But the Buddha consistently turned their attention away from the past and toward the present. Not because the past was unimportant, but because it was unchangeable. The only place where karma is actively being made, where intention is actually firing, is right now. This breath. This thought forming as I speak. That is the only karma that matters, because it is the only karma you can do anything about. This teaching lands like a gentle hammer. It says you are not a victim of your history. You are not a victim of your childhood or what happened yesterday. You are, in every moment, the creator of what happens next. The raw materials of your life may have been delivered by forces beyond your control, but what you build with those materials, the shape you give them, the meaning you assign them, that is entirely your domain. That is your karma. Consider two people who lose their jobs on the same day. The external event is identical. But their internal experiences could not be more different. The first feels shame and anger. They tell themselves a story of failure and unfairness. The second feels the shock but then pauses. They breathe. They begin asking different questions. What wants to emerge from this? What have I been ignoring that now has space to be seen? They are choosing their intention toward the event, and that choice shapes everything that follows. 6 months later, the first may still be trapped in bitterness. The second may have started something new. Same event, different intentions, different lives. If this teaching is resonating, I invite you to subscribe to Monk's Temple. By subscribing, you make a conscious choice to deepen your exposure to these ideas. You tell yourself that this path matters. Just click the button below. A small action, but every journey begins with a single step. Thank you. Now let us go deeper. The Buddha mapped 3 layers where we constantly build our experience. The first is bodily fabrication, the breath. The second is verbal fabrication, the inner conversation. The third is mental fabrication, feelings and perceptions. These 3 layers run constantly beneath our awareness. We think the anxious voice in our head is who we are. We think the tightness in our chest is just how things are. But these are fabrications. We are making them, moment by moment. And if we are making them, we can learn to make them differently. Start with the breath. Right now, notice it. Shallow or deep? Fast or slow? Do not change anything yet. Just notice. That noticing itself is a shift. You have stepped back from the movie of your mind and are simply watching the projector. This is the beginning of freedom. The breath is always available, always changing, always reflecting your mind. Anxious breath is short and tight. Peaceful breath is soft and deep. By working with the breath, you work with your mind. You intentionally lengthen the exhale and feel your nervous system calm. You breathe into tension and feel it soften. This is not just relaxation. This is karma. You are using intention to shape your immediate experience. You are not waiting for peace. You are building it. The second layer is verbal fabrication. This is the endless inner monologue that comments, judges, plans. It wakes you and chatters until sleep. It tells you what you should have said, what is wrong with others, what is wrong with you. This voice feels like you, but it is a fabrication. And because you are doing it, you can do it differently. You make a mistake. The inner voice says, "You are so stupid." That voice is a habit, old karma. But in the moment you hear it, you have a choice. You can believe it, let it define you. Or you can gently say, "That is an old story. I do not have to keep telling it." Then intentionally shift. I made a mistake. Humans make mistakes. What can I learn? That shift is choosing kindness over cruelty, even when the target is yourself. This is verbal karma. You are rewriting your own script. The third layer is mental fabrication, feelings and perceptions. Feelings are the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral tone accompanying every experience. Perceptions are the labels you attach. Friend or enemy. Threat or opportunity. These labels happen in an instant, based on conditioning. But you can learn to perceive differently. You can look at someone who hurt you and instead of enemy, perceive them as a suffering human acting out of confusion. That shift changes everything. It changes your feeling, your intention, the karma of the interaction. This is the work. This is why we meditate, not to escape, but to see these layers clearly. In the quiet, the chattering mind becomes visible. The breath becomes a friend. Feelings and perceptions reveal themselves as builders of your world. And in that seeing, you gain the most precious thing, the ability to choose. In our next part, we will explore how the past functions in this model, not as a prison but as a field of seeds, and how your present intention waters some seeds while letting others lie dormant. When you are ready, let me know and we will continue. Now we arrive at a teaching that challenges everything we think about right and wrong. The Buddha had a radically different view of what it means to harm yourself. He was not talking about physical self-harm. He was talking about something far more common. He said that you harm yourself when you harm others. Not because a God is watching. Not because the universe will punish you later. But because the very act of harming another is itself the harm you do to yourself. It is immediate. It is inseparable. Think about the last time you lied. A small lie to avoid awkwardness. In that moment, what happened inside you? You had to remember the lie. You had to maintain it. You introduced a crack in your own integrity. You now live in a world slightly less true. That is suffering. That is self-harm. Think about the last time you acted on greed. You took something you did not need. You pushed to get your way at someone else's expense. In that moment, what happened? You reinforced the voice that says you are not enough. You tightened the chains of craving. That is suffering. That is self-harm. Think about the last time you gave in to hatred. You held a grudge. You wished someone ill. In that moment, what happened? You marinated your own mind in poison. You let the person who wronged you live rent-free in your head. That is suffering. That is self-harm. This reframes everything. Ethics is not a set of rules. It is not about being good to please someone else. It is about understanding your own mind. The Buddha was not a moralist. He was a doctor. He saw that certain actions create suffering in the mind, right here, right now. And he simply pointed this out so you could stop doing them to yourself. Let me tell you about a man named Victor. Victor was cheated in a business deal. His partner took the money and disappeared. Victor spent years trying to track him down, years fantasizing about confrontation. He lost friendships because he could talk of nothing else. He lost his health to stress. One day, a friend said, "Victor, the man you are hunting does not know you exist. He is living his life. But you think of him every day. Who is in prison here?" Victor realized his pursuit of justice had become a life sentence. He had harmed himself far more than he was ever harmed. Now consider a woman named Priya. She worked in a nursing home. The job was difficult, underpaid, often heartbreaking. Other workers grew cynical. They did their tasks mechanically. But Priya made a different choice. Before each room, she paused and formed an intention. For the next few minutes, my only job is to offer kindness and dignity. That intention was her karma. It did not make the tasks easier. But it transformed her experience. She was not just changing a bedsheet, she was offering comfort. At the end of her shift, other workers were exhausted and bitter. Priya was tired, but her heart was full. Her intention was the difference between a job that drains and a practice that sustains. This is the Buddha's great insight. The quality of your action is the quality of your life in that moment. You do not wait for a future reward. The reward is built into the action itself. Kindness feels like kindness. Generosity feels like generosity. These are not just things you do. They are states you inhabit. And they are their own immediate reward. The same is true for unskillful actions. Anger feels like anger. Greed feels like greed. These are not just things you do. They are states you inhabit. And they are their own immediate punishment. The Buddha was not threatening you with hell. He was pointing out that you create hell for yourself, right now, every time you act from hatred or fear. This is why the 5 precepts are not commandments. They are training rules. Do not kill, because the intention to kill closes the heart. Why would you want to live there? Do not steal, because the intention to steal comes from a sense of lack. Why strengthen that? Do not lie, because the intention to deceive splits your mind. Why live divided? These are not restrictions. They are liberations. They free you from the suffering of acting against your own values. Let me tell you about David. He grew up in a family where sarcasm was the primary language. Everyone insulted everyone, and it was called love. David carried this into adulthood. He was quick with a cutting remark, funny but cruel. He noticed something. After every sarcastic comment, even when people laughed, he felt a small drop in his energy. A tiny closing. He was amusing himself at the expense of his own peace. David experimented. He went one full day without sarcasm. Just one day of speaking kind or neutral words. By evening, he felt lighter than he had in years. He had not realized how heavy his own unkindness had become. He had been carrying it constantly, mistaking it for personality. This is the weight of unskillful karma. You do not feel it because you are used to it. But when you set it down, you realize how much it was costing you. In our next part, we will explore how this teaching applies to relationships, and why the way we treat others is the most direct path to our own happiness. When you are ready, let me know. Now we arrive at the most practical application of everything we have explored. If karma is intention, and if our intentions shape our experience in every moment, then how do we actually work with this in our daily lives? How do we become better at choosing skillful intentions when the world constantly throws challenges at us? The Buddha gave us a simple but profound method. He called it the 4 sublime abodes. These are 4 qualities of heart that you can cultivate intentionally, like a gardener tending the most precious plants. They are goodwill, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. These are not just nice ideas. They are the most powerful tools you have for shaping your karma in any situation. Let us start with goodwill. This is the sincere wish for the happiness and well-being of all beings, including yourself. It is not about liking everyone. It is not about approving of what everyone does. It is simply a stance you take toward life. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. You can cultivate this intention right now, silently, as you sit here. You do not have to feel it perfectly. You just have to form the intention. That intention itself is karma. It is planting a seed. Now let me tell you about a woman named Grace. Grace had a neighbor who played loud music late at night. She tried everything. She asked politely. She complained to the landlord. She left notes. Nothing worked. Her anger grew. She lay awake at night not just because of the music, but because of her own rage about the music. She was watering the seed of resentment every single night. Then Grace learned about goodwill. She did not suddenly love her neighbor. But she began to practice forming the intention, may he be happy. May he find peace. She did this not because he deserved it, but because she deserved to sleep. She deserved to live without poison in her heart. Within weeks, something shifted. The music did not stop. But her reaction to it softened. It became background noise rather than a personal attack. She had not changed her neighbor. She had changed her karma. She had taken her watering can back. The second sublime abode is compassion. This is the wish for beings to be free from suffering. When you see someone in pain, compassion arises naturally. But you can also cultivate it intentionally. You can look at difficult people and ask, what suffering must they be carrying to act this way? This question does not excuse harmful behavior, but it changes your relationship to it. It softens something in you. Consider a man named James. His father was critical and cold his entire life. James carried deep anger toward him. Then his father became ill and needed care. James found himself in the position of helping the man who had hurt him. At first, he did it out of duty, resentfully. But gradually, he began to see his father differently. He saw not just the critical parent, but a frightened old man facing his own mortality. Compassion arose, unwanted at first, then undeniable. It did not erase the past, but it transformed the present. James was no longer a victim helping his abuser. He was a human being helping another human being. That shift was his karma. The third sublime abode is empathetic joy. This is the ability to rejoice in the happiness of others. For many of us, this is the hardest. We can feel goodwill and compassion, but when someone else succeeds, especially someone we see as a rival, something in us tightens. Jealousy arises. Empathetic joy is the intentional antidote to jealousy. It is the practice of actively wishing others well in their good fortune. A woman named Helen worked in a competitive field. When her colleague received a promotion Helen wanted, she felt the familiar sting of envy. But she had been practicing. She took a breath and formed the intention, I am happy for her. May her success bring her joy. She did not have to feel it fully. She just had to say it, to intend it. Something shifted. The envy did not disappear immediately, but it lost its grip. Helen realized that someone else's success does not diminish her own light. This is the wisdom of karma. Your happiness is not a limited resource. Rejoicing in others creates more joy for everyone, including you. The fourth sublime abode is equanimity. This is the most subtle. It is the ability to hold steady when things do not go your way. It is the recognition that every being is the owner of their own karma. You cannot control others. You cannot fix everything. Equanimity is the peace that comes from accepting this. Let me tell you about a man named Robert. His daughter made choices he deeply disagreed with. He argued, pleaded, tried to control. Nothing worked. He was exhausting himself and damaging their relationship. Then he encountered equanimity. He did not stop loving his daughter. He did not stop hoping for her well-being. But he accepted that her life was her own. Her karma was her own. He released the burden of needing to fix her. In that release, he found peace. And strangely, their relationship improved. She felt his acceptance rather than his pressure. His equanimity became the space where connection could happen. These four qualities are not just for meditation. They are for traffic jams and difficult meetings and family gatherings. They are for every moment when you have a choice about what to water in the field of your mind. In our next part, we will explore the most liberating teaching of all, that you are not your karma. You are the one who can choose it. When you are ready, let me know. Now we arrive at the most liberating teaching of all. It is the teaching that can set you free from everything we have discussed so far. It is this: you are not your karma. You are the one who can choose it. This distinction is everything. For most of us, we are completely identified with our habits. When anger arises, we become the anger. We say, "I am angry." When fear arises, we become the fear. We say, "I am afraid." When jealousy arises, we become the jealousy. We say, "I am jealous." This identification is the chain that binds us. The Buddha's entire path is designed to break this chain. Not by eliminating anger or fear or jealousy, but by creating enough space between you and them that you can see them clearly and choose differently. Imagine you are sitting in a movie theater. The screen shows a terrifying scene. A monster is chasing someone. If you forget you are in a theater, if you identify completely with the character on screen, you will feel real fear. Your heart will pound. Your hands will grip the armrest. But if you remember that you are just watching a movie, the fear changes. You still see the monster. You still see the chase. But you are not trapped inside it. You have space. This is what meditation trains. It trains you to remember that you are in a theater. The thoughts, the emotions, the urges, these are just images on a screen. They arise. They play out. They pass away. And you are the one watching. You are not the movie. You are the awareness in which the movie appears. Let me tell you about a woman named Sonia. Sonia struggled with anxiety her entire life. She had tried therapy, medication, exercise, diet. Nothing fully touched it. Then she encountered this teaching. She began to sit quietly each day and simply watch her mind. When anxiety arose, she did not fight it. She did not identify with it. She just watched. Ah, there is anxiety. Hello, anxiety. I see you. And she noticed something remarkable. When she stopped fighting anxiety, when she stopped becoming it, it lost much of its power. It still came. But it no longer stayed as long. It no longer defined her entire day. She had discovered that she was not her anxiety. She was the space in which anxiety arose and passed away. That space was freedom. Now consider a man named Thomas. Thomas had a quick temper. It had cost him jobs and relationships. He thought of himself as an angry person. That was his identity. When he began to practice, he learned to watch the anger instead of becoming it. He noticed the first signs. The heat in the chest. The tightening of the jaw. The quickening of breath. In the past, these signs meant he was already gone, already consumed. Now they became a signal. He would take a breath. He would say to himself, "Anger is arising. It is not me. It is just an energy. I can choose what to do with it." Sometimes he still acted out. But sometimes he did not. And over time, the space between the trigger and his response grew larger. That space was his freedom. This is the heart of karma. The past has given you certain habits, certain tendencies, certain seeds. But the present moment is always fresh. In this moment, you are not your past. You are not your habits. You are not your anger or your fear or your jealousy. You are the one who can choose to water something new. Let me tell you about a meditation teacher who was asked by a student, "How do I become enlightened?" The teacher said, "What is this I that wants to become enlightened? Find that, and your question will answer itself." The student was confused. But the teacher was pointing to something profound. The sense of being a separate self, a fixed identity, is itself a fabrication. It is a thought. It is a collection of habits and memories. And like all fabrications, it can be seen through. When you sit in meditation and watch the breath, you begin to see that even the sense of me is just another appearance. It arises. It changes. It passes away. What remains is awareness itself. And that awareness is not personal. It is not yours. It is just awareness. Resting in that awareness, even for a moment, is the highest freedom. A woman named Claire experienced this once. She was sitting by a lake at sunset. For a few moments, the sense of being a separate self called Claire dissolved. There was just the sunset, the water, the light. No watcher. No thing watched. Just experience. When she came back, she was changed. She had glimpsed that her essential nature was not the small self with all its problems. It was something vast and free. That glimpse became a compass. She knew what was possible. You do not need to wait for a lakeside sunset. You can glimpse this right now. Bring your attention to your breath. Feel the sensations of breathing. Notice the thoughts that come and go. Notice that you are noticing. That noticing is not a thought. It is not an emotion. It is not a sensation. It is awareness itself. And it is already free. This is the ultimate teaching on karma. Karma is what you do. But you are the one who can choose what to do. And when you rest in awareness, you see that you were never truly bound. The chains were made of thoughts you believed. And beliefs can be questioned. In our final part, we will bring everything together and explore how to live this teaching in every moment of your life. When you are ready, let me know. We have explored what karma truly means. We have seen that it is intention, not fate. We have learned about the field of seeds and the watering can of attention. We have discovered that harming others is harming ourselves, and that cultivating goodwill, compassion, joy, and equanimity is the most practical thing we can do. We have even glimpsed that we are not our karma, but the awareness in which karma arises and passes away. Now the question becomes, how do we live this? How do we take these teachings off the cushion and into the grocery store, the traffic jam, the difficult conversation, the ordinary Tuesday afternoon? The answer is both simple and demanding. You live it moment by moment. There is no other way. Enlightenment is not a destination you reach and then relax. It is a practice you renew with every breath. Every moment is an opportunity to choose your intention. Every moment is an opportunity to water a different seed. Let me tell you about a woman named Patricia. Patricia was a busy mother of 3 young children. Her days were chaos from morning until night. She had no time for long meditation retreats, no quiet space for contemplation. When she heard these teachings, her first thought was, "This is not for me. I cannot even finish a sentence without someone needing something. But then she realized something. The teaching on karma does not require silence. It requires attention. It requires intention. And she had plenty of moments for that. She practiced while changing diapers. She practiced while stirring soup. She practiced while driving carpools. In each moment, she asked herself, what is my intention right now? Am I watering patience or frustration? Am I watering love or resentment? Those small moments added up. Over years, they transformed her. She became known as the calmest mother in her community. Not because her life was easier, but because her intentions were clearer. Now consider a man named Frank. Frank was a businessman who traveled constantly. He was in airports and hotels more than his own home. He used to see this travel as lost time, dead time. Then he learned about intention. He began to use his time in airports to practice goodwill. Sitting at the gate, he would look at each person passing by and silently wish them well. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you find peace. Hundreds of people, hundreds of silent wishes. By the time he boarded his flight, his mind was calm and open. The travel had become his meditation. The waiting had become his practice. This is the secret. There is no moment that is not suitable for practice. There is no place where karma is not being made. Every glance, every word, every thought is an opportunity. You do not need to add more to your day. You just need to bring more awareness to what is already there. Let me share another story. A young man named Kyle came to a teacher and said, I want to practice, but my mind is so chaotic. I cannot focus for even a minute. The teacher smiled and said, then practice for 30 seconds. Kyle said, 30 seconds? That is nothing. The teacher replied, 30 seconds of genuine practice is worth more than a lifetime of daydreaming. Start with 30 seconds. Then do another 30 seconds later. Then another. The moments will add up. Kyle took this advice. He practiced for tiny slices of time throughout his day. While waiting for coffee to brew, he watched his breath for 30 seconds. While stopped at a red light, he wished goodwill to the drivers around him for 30 seconds. While brushing his teeth, he felt the sensations in his body for 30 seconds. Months passed. Those 30 seconds grew into minutes, then into a continuous thread of awareness running beneath his day. He had not changed his schedule. He had simply used the moments that were already there. Now let me tell you about a woman named Helen. Helen worked in a busy hospital as a nurse. Her job was stressful, understaffed, constantly demanding. She came home most days exhausted and irritable. She loved her work but felt it was draining her life away. Then she began to experiment with intention. Before each patient encounter, she took one breath and formed a simple intention, may I be of genuine help to this person. That was all. One breath. One intention. She did this dozens of times each shift. Within weeks, something shifted. The work was still stressful. The hospital was still understaffed. But Helen was different. She was no longer just surviving her shifts. She was showing up with purpose. Patients responded to her differently. She had more energy at the end of the day. The same hours, the same tasks, but transformed by the power of intention. She had discovered that meaning is not found in what you do, but in how you do it. Let me tell you about a man named George. George was retired and felt his life had lost purpose. His days stretched empty before him. He had been a successful professional, and now he was nothing. He fell into depression. Then he heard a teaching about intention. He realized he was watering the seed of worthlessness every day by telling himself he had no purpose. George decided to experiment. He began to walk through his neighborhood each morning. As he walked, he practiced picking up litter. Just small pieces of trash. He did it silently, without seeking recognition. He formed an intention each time: may this small act make the world slightly more beautiful for someone. That intention transformed his walks. He was no longer a retired man with nothing to do. He was a caretaker of his community. His depression lifted. Not because his circumstances changed, but because his intention changed. He had found purpose in the smallest of actions. This is the power of intention. It does not require grand gestures. It does not require perfect conditions. It requires only that you show up, moment by moment, and choose what you water. Consider a young woman named Maya. Maya was a student struggling with anxiety about her future. She worried constantly about whether she would succeed, whether she was good enough, whether she had chosen the right path. Her mind was always in the future, always anxious. Then she learned to bring her attention to the present moment. She practiced with small things. Washing a dish, she felt the water and the soap. Walking to class, she felt her feet on the ground. Eating a meal, she tasted each bite. Gradually, the anxiety lost its grip. The future was still uncertain. But she was no longer living there. She was living here, in the only moment that actually exists. This is the path. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about waking up to who you already are. It is about seeing that you have always been the architect, even when you forgot. It is about picking up the pencil of intention and drawing something beautiful, moment by moment, breath by breath. The Buddha's teaching on karma is not a doctrine to believe. It is a practice to live. It is an invitation to stop being a victim of your history and start being the creator of your present. It is a radical act of freedom available to you right now, in this very moment, as you sit here listening. What seed will you water next? What intention will you choose? The field is yours. The watering can is in your hand. The only question is whether you will remember that you are holding it. Thank you for spending this time at Monk's Temple. May your intentions be clear. May your heart be kind. May you find the peace that comes from knowing you are the one who chooses. May you live with ease, and may all beings everywhere be happy. This is the end of our teaching for today. Please return whenever you wish to water more seeds. The field is always here. You may have noticed that I said part 6 was the final part. But teachings have a way of continuing, of unfolding further, because the mind that receives them is never finished. So let us go a little deeper. Let us explore what happens when you truly begin to live this way, when the practice of intention becomes not something you do, but something you are. There comes a point on any genuine path where the effort you are making begins to feel less like effort. It becomes natural. It becomes who you are. This does not mean you are perfect. It does not mean unskillful thoughts never arise. It means that when they do arise, you see them clearly and you let them pass. They no longer grab you. They no longer define you. You have built a new habit, and that habit is awareness itself. Let me tell you about a woman named Lena. Lena had practiced with intention for years. She had watered seeds of kindness and patience until they were the strongest plants in her field. One day, she found herself in a situation that would have once destroyed her peace. A person she trusted had betrayed her confidence in a public way. The old Lena would have spiraled into rage and self-pity. She would have replayed the betrayal endlessly, watering the seed of resentment until it choked everything else. But something different happened. The anger arose. She felt it clearly. But beneath it, there was a vast stillness that had grown through years of practice. The anger was like a wave on the surface of a deep ocean. It moved, it crashed, but it did not disturb the depths. Lena watched it with interest. She noticed how it wanted her to act, to strike back, to protect herself. And she simply chose not to. She chose to water something else. She watered the seed of understanding. She thought about what might have led this person to act this way. She watered the seed of forgiveness, not because the act was acceptable, but because she deserved to be free of carrying it. Within hours, the wave had passed. The ocean was still. This is the fruit of practice. Now consider a man named Evan. Evan had spent years in a career that drained him. He felt trapped by his obligations, his mortgage, his family's expectations. Every morning he woke with a sense of dread. He believed his karma was fixed, that this was simply his lot in life. Then he began to examine his intentions. He asked himself, "What is my intention when I walk into that office?" His answer surprised him. His intention was to survive, to get through, to avoid pain. That was all. He was watering the seed of resignation every single day. No wonder his field felt barren. Evan decided to experiment. He could not change his job immediately. But he could change his intention. He began to walk into the office with a new question: how can I be of service today? He looked for small ways to help colleagues, to lighten someone's load, to bring a moment of kindness into the gray cubicle world. The work itself did not change. But Evan changed. He was no longer a victim of his job. He was a participant in his life. Within a year, opportunities opened that he could not have imagined. He was offered a different position, one that aligned with his values. He does not believe the new job was a reward for his good intentions. He believes that his changed intentions changed him, and that a changed person naturally moves toward different circumstances. This is karma not as magic, but as psychology. You become what you practice. There is a story about a potter. She worked with clay every day. At first, each pot was a struggle. The clay resisted. The wheel spun too fast. Her hands were clumsy. But she kept working. After years, something shifted. The clay no longer felt like something outside her. It felt like an extension of her own body. The wheel was not a machine she operated but a partner in creation. She could close her eyes and form a perfect pot, not because she was thinking about it, but because the practice had become her. This is what happens with the practice of intention. At first, it is clumsy. You forget. You react. You water weeds without meaning to. But you keep coming back. You keep choosing. You keep intending. And over time, something shifts. The choice becomes quicker. The awareness becomes steadier. The skillful intention arises naturally, without effort. You have become the potter. This does not mean life stops being difficult. It means you stop adding to the difficulty. It means you stop being the author of your own suffering. The world will still bring storms. But you will have built a house that can withstand them. Not because the house is made of stone, but because it is made of awareness, and awareness cannot be broken. Let me tell you one more story. A woman named Frances had struggled her entire life with feelings of unworthiness. She had tried affirmations, therapy, self-help books. Nothing reached the deep root of it. Then she encountered this teaching. She realized that her sense of unworthiness was just a seed. It had been planted long ago, by voices and events she could not control. But she was the one watering it, every day, with every self-critical thought, every comparison, every moment of self-doubt. Frances began to practice catching herself. When the thought arose that she was not good enough, she would pause. She would say to herself, "That is just an old seed. I do not have to water it." And she would deliberately turn her attention to something else. She would notice the beauty of a tree outside her window. She would remember something kind she had done recently. She would feel the warmth of her own hand on her heart. Small moments, but repeated thousands of times. Over months, the seed of unworthiness began to shrink. It did not disappear entirely, but it no longer dominated her field. New seeds had grown strong enough to keep it in check. This is the path. It is not about reaching a destination where all weeds are gone. It is about becoming a gardener who knows which plants to nourish and which to let be. It is about accepting that the work never ends, and finding peace in that acceptance. In our next part, we will explore what it means to touch the unconditioned, the place beyond all karma, the freedom that is available to you in every moment. When you are ready, let me know. Now we arrive at the deepest teaching of all. It is the teaching that the Buddha pointed to again and again, the one his entire path was designed to reveal. There is a dimension of experience not touched by karma at all. A place of utter peace not created by intention, not built by fabrication, not subject to cause and effect. The Buddha called it the unborn, the unbecome, the unmade, the unconditioned. And he said it is possible to know it, to touch it, to rest in it. This is not something you can achieve by striving. Striving itself is karma. It is intention. It is fabrication. The unconditioned cannot be reached by conditioned means. And yet, the path of skillful intention, the path of watering good seeds, the path of cultivating awareness, this path prepares the ground. It clears away the underbrush. It stills the mind enough that the unconditioned can be glimpsed, not as an object of thought, but as the ground from which all thought arises. Let me tell you about a man named Stephen. Stephen had practiced meditation for many years. He had cultivated goodwill, compassion, joy, and equanimity. He had learned to watch his breath, to observe his thoughts, to see the fabrications of his mind. He was skilled at all of this. But he still felt something was missing. There was still a sense of striving, of doing, of becoming. He was making progress, but progress was not peace. One day, sitting in meditation, he relaxed his effort completely. He stopped trying to focus. He stopped trying to be aware. He just sat. And in that moment of complete non-striving, something shifted. The sense of being a separate self, the one who was practicing, the one who was making progress, that sense dissolved. There was just sitting. Just breathing. Just awareness, with no center and no edge. Time stopped. Effort stopped. Stephen had touched the unconditioned. When he came out of that state, he was changed. Not because he had gained something new, but because he had lost something old. He had lost the sense that he was a self separate from the world. He had seen that the self is just another fabrication, another karma, another conditioned thing. And in seeing that, he was free. Now consider a woman named Eliza. Eliza had experienced tremendous trauma in her life. She carried wounds that most people could not imagine. She had done years of therapy, years of healing work. And she had made progress. But there was always a residue, a sense that she was damaged goods, that her trauma was part of her identity. Then she encountered this teaching. She began to sit in meditation and simply watch her thoughts and feelings. She watched the trauma memories arise. She watched the pain in her body. She watched the stories her mind told about what had happened. And beneath all of it, she began to notice something. There was awareness itself. And that awareness had never been touched by the trauma. It had witnessed it, yes. It had held it, yes. But it had never been damaged. The trauma was like a storm that raged across the sky, but the sky itself was unchanged. This realization did not erase her pain. But it transformed her relationship to it. She was no longer a victim with a damaged self. She was the sky, vast and clear, and the storms could come and go without destroying her. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed to. It is available to everyone, not by escaping life, but by seeing what you truly are. You do not need to wait for a dramatic meditation experience. The unconditioned is closer than you think. It is the silence between thoughts. It is the space in which all experience appears. It is the awareness that is reading these words right now. That awareness is not conditioned. It is not created by your past. It is not shaped by your intentions. It is simply here, always, unchanging, free. The problem is that we do not notice it. We are so fascinated by what appears in awareness that we overlook awareness itself. It is like looking at a movie screen and being so absorbed in the story that you forget there is a screen. But the screen is always there. It never changes. It is never damaged by the most terrifying scene or the most joyful one. It just holds it all. This is what you are. Not the story. Not the character. Not the karma. The screen. The awareness. The space. And this is what the Buddha meant when he said you can go beyond karma. Not by escaping the world, but by seeing what you truly are. When you rest as awareness, karma continues to happen. Thoughts arise. Feelings arise. Actions happen. But they no longer bind you. They are just appearances in the vast, free space of your true nature. Let me tell you about a woman named Anita. Anita was a caregiver for her aging mother, who had dementia. The work was relentless, heartbreaking, exhausting. Anita had every reason to be miserable. And yet, those who knew her noticed something strange. She was not miserable. She was sad sometimes. She was tired always. But beneath it, there was a deep peace. When asked her secret, she said, "I used to think I was the one doing all this. Now I see that caregiving is just happening. Suffering is just happening. Peace is just happening. And there is something here that watches it all, that holds it all, that is not touched by any of it. That something is what I really am. This is the fruit of the path. Not the end of difficulty, but the end of suffering about difficulty. Not the end of karma, but the end of being bound by karma. You still choose intentions. You still water seeds. But you do it from a place of freedom, not from a place of fear. You act, but you are not attached to the results. You live, but you are not trapped in the story of your life. In our next and final part, we will bring this entire journey to a close with a simple invitation, to live these teachings, right now, starting from this very moment. When you are ready, let me know. We have traveled far together on this journey. We have explored what karma truly means. We have seen that it is intention, not fate. We have learned about the field of seeds and the watering can of attention. We have discovered that harming others is harming ourselves. We have cultivated the four sublime abodes. We have glimpsed that we are not our karma but the awareness in which karma arises. And we have touched the unconditioned, the place beyond all making. Now we arrive at the end. But the end is really a beginning. It is the moment when you stop listening and start living. It is the moment when these teachings cease to be ideas and become your daily bread. It is the moment when you pick up the watering can and walk into your own field, knowing that every drop matters. Let me tell you about a man named Carlos. Carlos had listened to many teachings over many years. He could quote the Buddha. He could explain karma to anyone. But his life remained unchanged. He was still irritable with his family. He was still anxious about work. He was still trapped in the same patterns. One day, a teacher said to him, "Carlos, you have been studying the menu for years. When will you eat the meal?" This question landed like a thunderbolt. Carlos realized he had been collecting teachings like possessions, displaying them, discussing them, but never consuming them. He had not actually practiced. He had not actually watered different seeds. He had just learned about watering. That day, he made a decision. He would stop studying and start doing. He would take one teaching and live it for one day. Just one. He chose patience. For 24 hours, he committed to watering the seed of patience in every situation. It was the hardest day of his life. He failed many times. But by evening, he had tasted something real. He had not just thought about patience. He had felt it, failed at it, tried again. He had eaten the meal. This is the invitation for you. Not to believe these teachings, but to test them. Not to collect them, but to live them. Take one idea from our time together. Just one. Maybe it is watching your breath. Maybe it is watering a different seed. Maybe it is forming an intention of goodwill before a difficult conversation. Take that one idea and practice it for one day. See what happens. The proof of the teaching is not in its eloquence but in its effect on your life. Let me tell you about a woman named Nora. Nora chose to practice gratitude. Every night before sleep, she would recall 3 things she was grateful for. Small things. The taste of coffee. A kind word from a stranger. Sunlight through the window. She did this for 1 month. At the end of that month, something had shifted. She was not ignoring the difficulties in her life. They were still there. But they no longer dominated her field. The seeds of gratitude had grown strong enough to balance the weeds. She had changed her karma with 5 minutes of practice each day. Now consider a man named Peter. Peter chose to practice listening. He noticed that in conversations, he was always preparing what to say next, never truly hearing the other person. He committed to 1 day of genuine listening. Just listening, without planning responses, without interrupting, without judging. By the end of that day, people responded to him differently. They opened up. They trusted him. But more importantly, Peter felt different. He felt connected in a way he never had before. His intention had changed his experience. These are not miracles. They are the natural result of cause and effect operating in the most intimate territory there is, your own mind. When you change the intention, you change the experience. When you change the experience, repeated over time, you change the person. When you change the person, you change the life. This is karma. This is the path. This is freedom. The Buddha did not teach karma to frighten you. He taught it to empower you. He did not describe the field of seeds to burden you with guilt about the past. He described it to show you that the present is always fresh, always available, always yours to shape. No matter what seeds were planted yesterday, you hold the watering can today. No matter what storms have passed through your field, the soil is ready for new planting. You may have noticed that I have not told you exactly how many parts this journey would have. That is because teachings do not work that way. They unfold as needed. They continue as long as there is someone willing to receive them. But all teachings eventually point to the same thing, the silence from which they came. And so we now rest in that silence. Thank you for spending this time at Monk's Temple. Thank you for your attention, which is the most precious gift you can offer. Thank you for your willingness to consider that you might be more than your habits, more than your history, more than your karma. You are the awareness in which all of this appears. You are the sky, not the storm. You are the screen, not the movie. You are the field, and you are the farmer, and you are the water, all at once. May your intentions be clear. May your heart be kind. May you find the peace that comes from knowing you are the one who chooses. May you live with ease, and may all beings everywhere, without exception, be happy. This is the end of our teaching for today. But your practice continues. The next breath is waiting. The next choice is coming. The next moment is already here. Go well.